This is part 3 of a tutorial for making an app that has a text box that the user can type in and a button they can press to make text-to-speech say whatever they typed. In part 1, you just made the button speak a preset message. In part 2, you added the text box so they could type what they wanted to hear. But stop and think. What would happen if the user didn't type anything in that box? What would they hear when they pressed the speak button? Let's look at the blocks. When they click the button, text-to-speech will speak whatever message is in the text box. If there's nothing in the text box, nothing is what text-to-speech will speak. They will hear nothing. It will probably be confusing for them to press a button that says speak, but hear nothing. They might think that the app is broken. If they got it from the Play Store, they might leave bad reviews. And they'll definitely be frustrated. Those are all things you want to avoid as an app developer. So our next step will be to change this app so that if there's nothing in the text box, when they press the speak button, they'll hear an error message like, "Hey, you need to type something." Let's take a look at the algorithm, the set of steps for accomplishing that task. Step by step, making text-to-speech with an error message goes like this. When the button is pressed, if the text box is empty, then speak a message like, "You didn't type anything." Otherwise, meaning if it is not empty, then speak the message that is in the text box. This seems a little bit overwhelming, but remember, you already know how to do a lot of this. When the button is pressed, that's the first block you learned. Speaking a preset message, that's something you learned in part 1 of this tutorial. Speak the message that's in the text box. You learned that in part 2 of this tutorial. You already know how to do most of these things. The new parts are being able to say if something, then do something, and otherwise do something else. In most computer languages, being able to check if something is true and if it's not involves the words if and else. You may remember this from Python. Today we'll see how to use those in App Inventor too. The other new part of this app is checking to see if the text box is empty. These are some new ideas, but you can learn them. Let's give it a try. In App Inventor, we won't change anything about the way the app looks or what parts it has. Let's go straight to blocks. Start by breaking apart the script you made last time, but don't throw away the purple and green blocks. Just set them off to the side. We'll need them later. Remember, we're starting out with when the button is clicked. So keep that one front and center. Next, we need to say if the text box is empty. If is a control block in App Inventor. You'll find it by clicking Control, and then it should be the top choice, if, and it says then underneath. Remember, we're trying to say if the text box is empty, then do something else, or if it's not empty. But there's no else block. The way we make if, then, else is like this. Click on the little blue settings button on that if block, and you'll see some choices. Grab this one that says else and drag it into the picture of the if block. When you drop it, you should see this block change. Click the settings button again to dismiss that dialog. Now we have room to create our whole app. If the text box is empty, then say an error message, else say what's in the text box. So now we need to investigate our other new idea, how to say if the text box is empty. And we do that like this. We're not actually going to use the word empty. What we're going to do is check to see if the text box's text is equal to an empty block. That sounds a little confusing, but it works like this. Click Logic, then find the block with the equals sign on it. You'll see that that snaps right into place next to if. What we're going to say is if the text box's text equals nothing. Do you remember where we found this one that says the text box's text? By clicking on Text Box. Find the light green block again that says textbox1.text and snap it here. Then we need to say equals nothing. And we can get a box that says nothing by clicking Text, then grabbing that bright pink block you used before and leaving it empty. So this will check to see if there's nothing in the text box by saying if the text box's text equals nothing. So then what do we want it to do if the text box's text is nothing? We want it to speak an error message. Grab that text-to-speech speak block and another hot pink text block. Then type in whatever you want your error message to be. Hey, you need to type something. This can be as friendly or as silly as you think will appeal to your users. Think about who you hope will use this app. You probably don't want it to say, "Hey genius, you gotta type something you want to hear," if you're hoping that people will use this app in formal settings. But if it's something to have fun with your friends, maybe the error message can be a little sillier. Always try to think about who will use your app and what they will like the best. So now we have, when the button is clicked, if the text box is empty, then speak an error message. What's left? Otherwise, speak the message in the text box. Otherwise is this part right here that says else, and speak the message in the text box is these blocks we've been holding on to. Grab those and snap them into place next to else. It looks like we have all of the steps in our algorithm translated into code. Stop and ask yourself, do I understand why all of the parts of this work? If not, try asking for help. When you think you understand why it should work, then test your app. Put it on a device and try it. If you leave the text box blank, do you hear the error message? If you type in the box and press the button, does it still speak what you typed? If it works, then you can go on to part 4, making a list of random error messages. Or you can try some other ideas for extending your app. Check out the article that goes with this video, or try one of your own ideas. Way to go! You did it!